Okay, so you want to double check that you have everything taped. You shouldn't have like sections that are barely taped on. And if you have thinner areas, you should make sure that they are taped as well. If you have maybe like some gaps like this, it wouldn't hurt right now just to put a piece of tape on that, okay, and press it down, okay, and maybe even like places like this. The tape is actually sticky, so it's going to hold something in that position that you put it in. The paper mache is not. This doesn't have any strength to it, okay? All it is glue. And so what we're doing is we're putting a coating on the outside of it with newspaper, okay? And so that means, I mean, you think about like an M&M, right? It has that like shell on the outside and then there's the chocolate on the inside. So we're just putting that shell that's going to coat just a tiny bit of that outside of this figure, okay? And so we're going to need to tear the newspaper into strips that are manageable. I would tear these right now before your hands get all yucky. And newspaper is going to tear vertically. Like if you look at the newspaper this way, like this is long, I've opened this up, it's going to tear this direction really well. So look at like this small piece, like this tears really well that direction, but not so well this direction, okay? So you can get lots of things, like lots of paper torn and ready, okay? And sometimes it's almost easier to have these like in shorter pieces because the longer ones you kind of have to figure out like how am I gonna like wrap it around and where is that piece of paper gonna go, okay? So get those ready. We don't want to try and put a piece of newspaper on like this and try and cover him, right? That doesn't make any sense. This is gonna like totally change what he looks like. You have to have little strips that can go in those nooks and crannies and just coat him and not change his shape. Because if you stretch a piece across it like this, it's gonna look like he doesn't have an arm. Okay, so little pieces are gonna go a lot faster. You might even need really little pieces for like places like the ears, okay? This piece is probably like too big. How do I wrap that around and get it to stick? But if I had a piece like this, then I would probably have an easier time getting this to wrap around it, okay? So smaller pieces, faster pieces usually mean, or bigger pieces means you have to take them off and start over because then your figure looks all funny. Okay, so make sure you have them ready. And again, like I said, I would make them in smaller, kind of more manageable pieces. This part was folded, so these will be a little bit longer. Well, I thought it was. Okay, but this also doesn't mean that we need like a whole mountain of paper mache, like torn up. Because whatever we don't use for this just goes in the trash. Okay, or you could put it in your folder and try and keep it, but we're not saving it for somebody else. Okay, this is just too much of a mess. Paper that looks like this, that's still folded up, that can go back up there. Okay, but it'll get all yucky. So there's going to be some containers that you can take to your table that have glue in them. You've got all your paper ready. You have your figure ready. So all you're going to have to do is dip this in and you're going to wipe off this residual. A lot of this is going to stick to your fingers, okay, and that's okay. And then you're going to have to press this on and really smush and make sure it actually is forming to the shape of your figure, okay? I would suggest that you go lots of different directions with this, that you don't line them up, because then you're going to have places probably peel. I think going like crisscross back and forth is going to be the best bet for making sure that things stay together. Okay, that means they don't have as many like places that are just exposed. Okay, so press around and kind of bend it and make sure it's tight against that form. And right now we're going to try and put 2 layers on. The first layer is pretty easy to see that you've got that on because you have tape underneath it, right? So I can tell just by looking at it if you actually have one layer on there. Okay, so I would go through and coat the whole thing, do that one layer like we talked about, which this doesn't take too long. And then I would go ahead and figure out, where am I going to start? Am I going to start at the top or the bottom? And work your way one more time. Okay, so you can see how that will eventually coat and cover this figure up. Places that really have a big curve, I mean, you really have to press and kind of bend the paper, maybe overlap a little bit, but it's possible to get it to take that shape. Okay, so you just got to keep going. You can rip the paper while you're working on it. It's just maybe a little bit more difficult. Okay, and just continue to cover those up. Lots of different directions. Not trying to be like super orderly. I think that's what some people do that have them stacked up, is they're trying to be neat and tidy. And it actually makes it easier for it to fall apart because they're all like layered next to each other, and then they all just kind of peel up. Okay, so lots of glue. I mean, it shouldn't be dripping off of it, but it shouldn't be so dry that you can't like see a shine on it. Okay, so continue to do that. You would still do the bottom of this. It's going to sit up on the shelf. It cannot sit in the cabinet overnight, or the cabinet will, believe it or not, keep that moisture inside, and it'll make it harder for it to dry. Okay, so these need to go on the shelves outside of the storage room over here, which I'll show you. When we clean up, we do have to wipe our spots down, okay? This glue is almost kind of soapy, so you have to get a wet rag and wipe it off. All of this is just going to be a pain to try and put it somewhere because it's probably got glue all over it. So this just goes in the trash like I had said before. Questions? Okay, that's where we're headed. I'll get some glue containers out to you.